It hung there, silent, menacing. The painting was a window into a soul consumed by darkness. A woman stared out from the canvas. Her face, a mask of eternal sorrow, was framed by long dark hair. But it was her eyes that chilled the viewer to the bone. They were wide with terror, forever frozen in a silent scream. Those eyes seemed to follow your every move, penetrating your thoughts, feeding off your fear. The painting was the work of a man named William Hawthorne, a gifted but troubled artist who lived in the late 19th century. Hawthorne was obsessed with capturing the essence of his subjects, their deepest fears and desires. He believed that true art required sacrifice. He found his muse in a young woman named Eliza, a woman of captivating beauty but haunted by a melancholy he desperately wanted to portray. Eliza, however, refused to be his subject. Undeterred, Hawthorne resorted to a sinister act. He tricked Eliza, trapping her in his attic studio, her terror fueling his masterpiece. Hawthorne's masterpiece, the portrait of Eliza, was shrouded in tragedy from the start. The painting, with its dark hues and haunting expression, seemed to capture more than just her likeness. It captured her very soul. Eliza, driven mad by her ordeal, took her own life within days of the painting's completion. Her descent into madness was swift and brutal, leaving those who knew her in a state of shock and disbelief. Hawthorne himself met an untimely end, found dead in his studio, his eyes wide with the same terror that marked Eliza's painted visage. It was as if the painting had cursed him, drawing him into the same abyss that claimed Eliza. The portrait was left unfinished, its eerie presence casting a pall over the old manor. The once grand estate now stood as a monument to sorrow and despair, its halls echoing with whispers of the past. The manor and the painting were left to Hawthorne's nephew, a man named Edward. He inherited not just the property, but the heavy burden of its dark history. Edward, initially captivated by the portrait's beauty, soon became aware of its unsettling aura. The more he gazed at it, the more he felt a strange connection to the tragic events that had unfolded. He couldn't shake the feeling that the eyes in the portrait followed him, watching his every move, judging his every thought. The sensation grew stronger with each passing day, filling him with an unshakable dread. Edward began to wonder if he too would fall victim to the curse of the portrait, just as Eliza and Hawthorne had before him. Edward tried to ignore the strange occurrences that began shortly after he hung the portrait above his fireplace. There were whispers in the dead of night, cold spots that moved through the house. He dismissed them as tricks of his imagination, the product of an overactive mind influenced by the painting's unsettling gaze. One night, however, Edward awoke to a chilling sound. It was a woman's sob, coming from the direction of the portrait. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding in his chest. As he stared at the portrait, he could have sworn that the eyes in the painting flickered, a single tear tracing a path down Eliza's painted cheek. The sobbing continued each night, growing louder, more desperate. Edward's sleep was plagued by nightmares, visions of Eliza trapped and tormented. He tried to remove the painting from the wall, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen force held it in place. His attempts only seemed to intensify the strange occurrences. The temperature in the house plummeted, a bone-chilling cold emanating from the portrait itself. Objects began to move on their own, furniture overturning, books flying off shelves. Edward, once a rational man, felt himself slipping into a state of madness. He was haunted by Eliza's sorrow, tormented by the knowledge of her suffering. Driven to the brink, Edward sought help from the local vicar, a man known for his devout faith and understanding of matters beyond the realm of the ordinary. The vicar, upon seeing the portrait, was visibly shaken. He recognized the darkness that emanated from the canvas, the palpable aura of suffering and despair. He warned Edward that the painting was not merely an object, but a conduit, a link to the tormented soul of Eliza, forever trapped within its depths. Edward, desperate for relief, begged the vicar for help. The vicar, though fearful, agreed to attempt an exorcism to cleanse the manor and lay Eliza's spirit to rest. The exorcism was a harrowing experience, one that would be etched into the memories of all who witnessed it. The vicar, armed with his faith and holy relics, confronted the darkness that had taken root in the manor. His every step was a testament to his unwavering belief in the power of good over evil. The air crackled with an unseen energy as the vicar chanted ancient rites, his voice echoing through the halls. Each word seemed to pierce the oppressive gloom, pushing back the shadows that clung to the walls. The temperature in the room plummeted, frost forming on the walls. It was as if the very essence of the house was reacting to the vicar's presence, the cold seeping into the bones of those present. The portrait, as if sensing the challenge to its hold, reacted violently. The once still canvas now seemed alive, its surface rippling with a supernatural energy that defied explanation. The canvas rippled, Eliza's eyes blazing with a malevolent fury. Her gaze seemed to bore into the souls of those who dared to look upon her, a testament to the dark power that held her captive. The screams of a woman filled with anguish and rage echoed throughout the house. It was a sound that chilled the blood, a reminder of the torment that had taken place within these walls. The vicar, his face pale with exertion, continued his prayers, his resolve unwavering in the face of the growing darkness. Each word was a beacon of hope, a light in the encroaching gloom. The struggle raged for hours, the outcome hanging precariously in the balance. It was a battle not just of physical endurance, but of wills, a test of faith against the relentless tide of evil that sought to consume all. As dawn broke, the vicar collapsed, his face etched with exhaustion. The night had been long and grueling, filled with relentless battles against unseen forces. His body ached, and his spirit was weary, but he had managed to survive another night. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The once suffocating air now felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. The eerie silence that followed was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos that had ensued just hours before. The portrait of Eliza was still, her eyes, though still filled with sorrow, no longer radiated malevolence. It was as if the spirit within had found a momentary peace, a brief respite from its eternal torment. The vicar, weak but victorious, cautioned Edward. His voice was hoarse, each word a struggle, but the urgency in his tone was unmistakable. He warned Edward of the dangers that still lurked, the darkness that had not been fully vanquished. Eliza's spirit, he explained, was appeased for now, but the painting remained a cursed object, a portal to the darkness that lay beyond. The vicar's eyes were filled with a deep-seated fear, a fear that Edward could not ignore. He urged Edward to destroy the portrait, to sever the link to the tormented soul it held captive. The vicar's plea was desperate, his expression intense, as if he knew the consequences of leaving the curse unchecked. Edward, however, couldn't bring himself to destroy such a masterpiece, cursed though it may be. The painting was a work of art, a beautiful creation that held a tragic story within its brushstrokes. His hand trembled as he reached out, torn between duty and admiration. He decided instead to rid himself of the painting, to send it as far away from himself and the manor as possible. The decision weighed heavily on him, but he knew it was the only way to protect himself and those he loved. He packed the portrait, now strangely cold to the touch, into a sturdy crate. The chill of the painting sent shivers down his spine, a reminder of the dark power it held. As he closed the crate, a sense of foreboding washed over him, a feeling that this was not the end, but merely a temporary reprieve. Edward shipped the portrait to London, intending to sell it at a renowned auction house that specialized in antiquities and art of questionable origin. He included a note detailing the painting's history, the strange occurrences, and the attempted exorcism, hoping to warn any potential buyers of the risks involved. The auction house, however, saw the painting's dark history not as a curse, but as a selling point, a way to attract collectors with a taste for the macabre and the unusual. They advertised the portrait as the Haunted Lady, shrouding its history in intrigue and embellishing the tales of its supernatural powers. The auction was a resounding success. Collectors, drawn by the allure of the forbidden and the promise of owning a piece of the supernatural, engaged in a bidding war. The painting was sold for an exorbitant sum to a mysterious buyer, a recluse known only as Mr. Blackwood, who vanished without a trace shortly after the purchase. The painting, once again, disappeared from public view, its whereabouts unknown. Some whispered that Mr. Blackwood, driven mad by the portrait's influence, had destroyed both himself and the painting. Others believed that the painting, its thirst for darkness unsated, had claimed another victim, drawing Mr. Blackwood into its depths, trapping him forever in its haunted gaze. The truth, like the painting itself, remains shrouded in mystery. The haunted lady, as she came to be known, continues to be a subject of morbid fascination and whispered rumors. Some say the painting resurfaces every few decades, appearing in some antique shop or auction, its eyes still holding that haunting gaze, its presence still imbued with the sorrow and terror of Eliza's soul. Where the painting is now, no one knows for sure. But one thing is certain, the darkness that inspired its creation has not faded. It waits, trapped within the canvas, for its next unsuspecting victim. The question is, will it be you?